Welcome to week 4 of Case Studies in Financial Analysis. I'm your online instructor, Diana Block. And here in week 4, we're going to be reading chapters 15, 16, and 17 in the textbook. And then we're going to have some discussion and assignment over two different cases. And the two cases are case 33, and that is the California Pizza Kitchen case. That's the assignment that that's the case that you're going to have your writing assignment cover. And then you're also going to read case 52, the Purinex case. And this is a case we're going to talk about in the discussion area for this week. So when we look at chapters 15 through 17, one of the major topics that we're going to talk about is fundraising. How do corporations and startup organizations raise funds? And in the very earliest stages of organizing the business, very likely you've got an entrepreneur who is starting this organization from scratch. And in that case, they are usually going to be doing what we call some bootstrapping. And this comes from, pulling yourself up by your bootstraps, which basically means they're going to fund the organization themselves. They're going to use their own savings, their own personal line of credit, their own family and friends as investors, and they're going to just come up with the money themselves. They might borrow against their home or use their credit cards, but it's usually that entrepreneur that is simply going to use his own individual resources to get the organization off the ground. Now, often, once there is a basic format of the firm, maybe they've actually begun to develop their prototypes and they have something to show, to demonstrate to potential investors what they're trying to accomplish, they're going to try to get the attention of venture capitalists. So venture capitalists could be wealthy individuals, or it could also be a firm that makes it their business to invest in brand new businesses. So what they're looking for is entrepreneurs who have new and innovative products or services, so that they can invest. So they match up with these entrepreneurs who have new and inventive services, and they're looking for people who want to invest. So a match made in heaven. People who have money and want to invest in products connect with people who have products that need investors. And so you've got these venture capitalists who step in this situation, and there's a whole industry of venture capitalists, people who do this for their living. They invest in new products and new startup companies. This is a business that you have to get into very carefully, though, because wealthy people, of course, want to stay wealthy, which means they don't want to invest in projects that are going to fail or have a high risk of failure. But entrepreneurship in itself is high risk. So this business of being a venture capitalist has a very high degree of risk involved. Starting a new business is a risky proposition, even when the product really seems innovative and useful. So this is a high risk investment by nature, which means venture capitalists are going to want to see a fantastic business plan. You're really going to have to show that you have a product or service that is going to create a definite need, that you have the plans needed to market and distribute it successfully. So they're going to want to really examine your whole business plan before providing funding. And also, what they're going to usually do is provide the funding in stages. And so that you will work with that firm as to how they will go about funding you and the different milestones that they're going to expect to see along the way in your product development to continue the funding. So the next aspect of raising funds that we normally hear us talk about is our IPO. Now, an IPO can be used in multiple ways in the funding process. It could be the exit strategy for your venture capitalists. At some point, they when the product has reached a level where it's accepted in the market and they believe they can get investors in the open marketplace, they may recoup their investment by going ahead and pursuing with you an IPO. And so they earn their money back on the shares that are sold publicly. Or the firm itself, that has been operating off of private capital, the bootstrapping capital, may just decide that it is time to have an initial public offering. And so, of course, this means that we're going to sell shares to the public and create a corporation, basically. This is at the point that we're creating a corporation. It's going to be owned by shareholders. So when an IPO takes place, generally a firm is going to require the assistance of an investment banker. And so the investment banker is going to help with consulting services, or going to underwrite the spread, and they're going to usually give you a firm commitment, which means they're going to pay for all the shares and bear the risk of selling them later. An investment banker is a very important part of that process for most firms, a very important part of the process of going public. And once the firm has gone public and they've raised money in that way, so we've got shareholders now, we've got equity stakeholders. Something the firm might also do to raise funds as they're continuing their operations is get loans from the bank. You may just get a bank term loan, which is just like it sounds. We're just going to get a loan from the bank. It's going to have a multi-year payment requirement, so it's going to be a long-term loan, and we'll just borrow money to continue our operations. So there's various ways that firms go about raising money, from the very beginning of the owner just putting their life savings into it, to maybe getting the investment capital of some venture capitalists that are looking to get involved in some new businesses, to the initial public offering, going public and creating a corporation that's owned by shareholders, and then just taking on debt, loans from the bank. Various ways that the firm can get capital infused into it. Now, as the firm operates, they're going to develop a policy for their capital structure. So when we look at the capital structure, we're talking about that firm's particular mix of debt, whether that be long-term and or short-term debt, common equity, and preferred equity. So the capital structure is how the company chooses to finance its overall operations, and the mix of all of these different funding sources that it chooses to stick with as closely as possible. So then that optimal capital structure is the structure in which that company is able to achieve their ideal balance of debt to equity, so that they're minimizing their overall cost of capital. So we know that in theory, the debt is often lower cost uh, of all the capital sources, because there's the tax deductibility of the interest payments. So debt does generally cost less. However, debt increases the risk of bankruptcy to the firm. So we don't want to do all debt necessarily. And so we want to get that perfect mix that's going to provide the lowest cost of capital possible, but minimizing the firm's risk as much as possible, so that they are offering a balance in their capital structure. And so this optimal capital structure is going to be different for each firm. It just depends on how much debt they're able to bear and what kind of cost structures they're seeing in all of their sources of capital. Your reading for this week suggest that you look at least a couple of different theories about capital structure. And the first one that you're going to encounter in the reading is the trade-off theory. Now, this is the idea that the company's going to choose how much debt and how much equity to use in its financing by balancing those costs and benefits, balancing them out, trading off. And a lot of times it's set up as a competitor theory to this pecking order theory. So we're going to look at that. So there's the kind of a competitive theories here, trade-off versus pecking order. But the trade-off theory basically assumes that corporations are usually going to be financed with part debt and part equity, and that there are actually advantages, which there's advantages to using debt in the financing mix. And we have to trade off those costs or those benefits with the cost or the risks in placed on the firm in the uh, sense of a higher risk of bankruptcy. So you're trading off that financial benefit of lower cost debt due to tax benefits with the risk of bankruptcy. Now, when you look at the pecking order theory, this looks at the fact that the cost of financing is going to increase with asymmetric information, and that companies are going to prefer to raise capital that comes from internal funds. Internal funds are issuing new or debt or issuing new equity. And so the pecking order theory says that we're just going to, in that order, internal funds, then debt, then issue new equity. Raising equity is going to be a last resort for those firms that subscribe to this pecking order theory. And as you continue your reading in chapters 15 through 16, or 15 through 17 actually, you'll see more details about capital structure and those theories that we discussed here. And you'll have more time to review them in detail. And also, of course, in your research and citations that you're going to make this week, you'll find a lot of information about that. So I look forward to talking with you about these topics in the discussion this week. And if you have any questions or concerns, remember I have my information posted in the discussion area. You can contact me by email at any time and receive a prompt response. So have a great week, and we will talk to you in discussion.